Hi, this is Lee at IELTS, and in this video we'll be looking at IELTS Writing Task 1, focusing on process diagrams. Process diagrams tell you how something is made. They tell you the method for chocolate production, how coffee is produced, or the production of potato chips. On the other hand, life cycles show you the life cycle of a butterfly, insect, or how rain is formed. In our example, we're going to be talking about coffee production. So we can see that the pictures below show how coffee is grown and prepared for drinking. We're going to summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features. So if we have a look, we have basically 9 different steps in the process of drinking coffee and to the stage where we're going to drink it. So in the first one, we talk about the coffee beans being grown, who picks them, what happens to them along the process. In 3-4, we get to the milling stage. The beans are grated or roasted. The beans are then ground, brewed, and they're just enjoyed as a cup of coffee. And that's what we're going to be looking at in this video. To write your introduction, you just say what the diagram is and paraphrase the question statement. This is the same process that you would do for writing task 1 if you're talking about a line graph or a bar chart or a map. So for example, the picture below shows how coffee is grown and prepared for drinking. So we're going to rewrite this in our own words and say the diagram shows the process for growing coffee and how it is made ready for drinking. The overview for process diagrams is the same sort of idea that we have for all writing task 1 overviews. So we want to tell the reader 3 main points, though 2 will do, and if you want 1 overarching sentence, that will be enough. However, with 3 main points, you're giving a fully fleshed out overview, which hopefully will get you better marks for task response. So we tell the reader how many stages there are, we tell them where the process begins, and we tell them where the process ends. So this is really specific for process writing. So for example, we start off with the word overall because we're giving an overarching statement. Overall, there are 9 stages in the production of coffee, from picking beans in Colombia to being drunk and enjoyed. So we can see that there are 9 stages. We can say that the first process is picking the beans and the last stage is drinking and enjoying. So for body paragraphs, you can have 1 body paragraph for process writing. For the other task 1s, we generally try to have 2, and I would still suggest having 2 body paragraphs, but you can get away with 1 for process writing. But always try and look for a logical cutoff point. Don't just cut it off randomly, you need to think logically. So you will need to bring in some of the information you have from the outside world to help you write these things. The main tenses are going to be the present simple and the present perfect. These will be written in passive voice though. We will also use sequencing adverbs and a variety of grammar points to show good cohesion. For process writing, one of the main tenses you will need is the present simple passive. So when we form this, we have the object plus a version of the verb to be, so is, am, are, was, were, be, been, or being, and the past participle of the verb. The past participle is your 3rd form in your dictionary. So for example, eaten, begun, slept. These are all the past participle. So for our example, coffee is grown in Colombia. So the past participle is grown. We're talking about the present, so we're going to use the verb is, and coffee is a singular verb. In fact, it's a non-count verb. Or the coffee beans are milled. Milled is our past participle. Are is in the present, but it's also talking about coffee beans, so we're using it in the plural form. When writing about process diagrams and using the passive, we have a couple of choices to make. We use the active voice for natural processes. For example, coffee beans grow in Colombia. Humans have next to no part or very little part in this part of the process. Coffee beans grow naturally, so we use the active voice. However, for other parts of process diagrams, we're going to use the passive voice. So, the coffee beans are picked. And we can have by who does it, but in this case it's not going to be important. However, linking is important. Linking makes your writing more interesting to read, and there are a number of ways that you can use linking. So, you can use linking adverbs such as first of all, the following step is, or finally. You can also link with the present perfect passive using once, when, or after. And we can use after plus the verb form ing, or before plus the verb form ing. So, looking at the adverbs, they usually come at the start of a new stage of the process, but they can also come at the new section of a process too. So if you've got a couple of stages put together in one sentence, you can use your linking adverbs at the start of that. However, don't overuse them, as grammar variation can help you with linking, but if you overuse too many adverbs, you can lose marks for coherence and cohesion because your writing becomes mechanical. That means that you will get about a band 5 for coherence and cohesion. So we have some examples. First of all, the first tip is that to begin with and initially. Obviously, these come at the first stage of your process. In the middle of the process, we can use then, subsequently, at this point. The next step is that, and then, so we can use them in the middle of a sentence, and after which. We can use this in the beginning and the middle as well if we wish. Then finally, the last step is. So when we're writing our very last step, we can use either of these. So, using the present perfect to link with. When we're using a perfect tense, we're really talking about 2 points in time. We can talk about what happens now and something that's just happened just before. So, to do this, we can use after, once, or when, plus the present perfect to join 2 stages together. So, the coffee beans are picked from the plant and then put into baskets. So we're just using a linking verb there, and then. So we can have after the coffee beans have been picked from the plant, they are then put into baskets. We have our adverb, after, then we have the subject, this is important, have been picked. Here is our present perfect passive. So we know that this is the first stage in the process. They, again, we're looking at linking. So instead of saying the coffee beans, we're going to use they. Then we're sequencing, and pay close attention because then comes directly before the past participle. So we've got the present perfect and we've got the passive in the same sentence. We've got 2 forms of the passive. We've got the present perfect passive and the present simple passive. We can also use after or before plus the ing form of the verb to link our sentences together. So we'll take the example. The coffee is roasted and then it is ground into a powder. This is still an interesting sentence, but if we've used the same form again and again and again, it gets a little bit boring. So we're going to use after being roasted, the coffee is then ground into a powder. There's a couple of things to note in here. 1, it is now a complex sentence. 2, we're using being roasted, which is the participle form. So we're using after being roasted, the coffee is then ground into a powder. Showing a lot of variety here. Or we could use before. Then we could say before grinding the coffee into a powder, it is roasted. It is still a complex sentence, and we're still showing our linking by using the word before, but we're also showing the structure, what happens at each stage of the process. So we don't always need to use our adverbs of linking. In this video's example, there are 9 different stages in the process of making coffee and enjoying and drinking it. However, you're not always going to be this lucky on test day. You will usually find that you have between 3 and 5 stages in the process that you have to write 150 words about. So it's important that you can extend and improve your answer, and to do this you can do this by adding additional information to explain why it happens. So for example, the coffee beans are laid out in the sun in order to be dried. So we're giving the reason why. This also gives us a chance to use relative clauses. We can use where, when, in different stages of the process. This shows our grammatical variety as well. And now the final word. Don't forget that the introduction tells the reader what the diagram shows. This doesn't need to be written in complicated language. Just quickly paraphrase it, write your answer, and move on. The overview is a little bit more complicated, but you just look for 3 main points, count how many stages there are, say what the first stage is and what the last stage is, and your overview is complete. Don't forget the active voice is generally used for natural processes, while the passive voice is used for production processes. To show good cohesion, don't forget to use your linking adverbs and your grammatical tenses. The more grammatical forms that you use, hopefully the better grammar score you will get if you write them correctly. Don't forget to give additional information. You will need to bring in some information from the outside world, but remember to think logically and make sure that it is relevant to the question that you're being asked to write about. To practice doing this, think about an activity that you do every day and think about the stages there are. Write it down in logical steps and then try using some of the sentence forms that we were looking at today. Good luck! This has been Lee at IELTS. Thank you for watching today. Don't forget to comment, like and subscribe. I'll see you later.